the second somebody gets out their wallet, second somebody gets out their credit card, there is a fundamental relationship shift that has taken place. They're no longer just a fan. They're no longer just a consumer of content. They're now a customer. They're now a client. And that shift is really important.
Hey everybody, Roland, Frasier, and Ryan Deiss with another episode of the Business Lunch podcast, where we are going to follow up on the conversation we had about the book launch of my book with Jay Abraham, Business Wealth Without Risk, which happened recently. We broke down everything on the last podcast. This one, we are going to talk about how Ryan is approaching the launch of Get Scalable. And funnily enough, neither Business Wealth Without Risk nor Get Scalable, which is Ryan's book, was written by us together, despite the fact that we all talk about all of these things all the time. And we talked about why last time. We'll talk about why on this one as well, and then break down kind of what you're doing. So, Ryan, why the heck didn't I get to write this book with you?
Yeah, it's because you add no value, and I just don't care for you very much.
I get that a lot. That makes sense.
At all.
That's acceptable.
Yeah, at all. No, I mean, in this particular case, a lot of this is trying to do things simultaneously rather than sequentially, right? And so it is one of those pieces where it's like, okay, you're going to work on this book that you're doing with Jay. I'm going to work on this book that I'm doing, over here, and let's get these both done at the, on around the same time. Whereas I think if we tried to write a book together, we both would have been very kind of precious with it. We both would have taken a long time. My delays would have been at different times than your delays. And my guess is by this point, we would have had 0 books, whereas right now we have 2.
Which is cool because we actually have been trying to write a book for, I don't know how many years now, that is both of us, that is kind of semi-done, but actually during the time that we just talked about this last week, during the time that we've been writing it, we kind of decided to do everything differently. And so all of the effort and expense that went into writing that one, it's kind of just not going to ever be released. And I mentioned last time I wrote with Jay to get access to other markets, but also you guys, when you're in partnership with people, you don't have to do everything together. Ryan, this was, if not exclusively, primarily all of Ryan's thoughts and ideas about business operating system. And he may bounce things off of me just like he does thousands of other people, but it's really his work. And so it makes sense when it's your work for it to be just you. Don't slap your name on it unless there's extra value to be gotten from it. And also beware trying to write one together when you both have busy schedules and you have one that just doesn't ever come out. Okay.
Yeah. And in the same way that I didn't care because it would have been easy enough. I'm sure I've been like, if I bet if I had thrown a little pity party and been like, I want to be in a book with you and Jay, that, you would have like let me write a bonus chapter or something like that. And I could have put my name on it as well. But as we talked about, we're not in this for the fame. We want the deal flow. Yeah. And so I get to participate on the deal flow that comes through that book because we're business partners, in the same way that you'll be participating on the deal flow that comes from this. So I think it's so important. And especially, this is not the topic of today's episode, but it is so important, especially in business partnerships, that you are clear on what is the goal that everybody's looking to achieve. And you just let ego just sit over there by itself and be the little, toddler crybaby that it is. Because I think had we done
business partners wrote a whole book on that called Ego is the Enemy.
There you go. Yes. And so it's like, I think the point, and we've said this, when we try to write a book together, it still isn't done. We said, let's go ahead and get these books knocked out separately. Both get done.
Yeah.
Magic. Right. And so, so I think that's the most important thing. And then we get to benefit from them, not just in the awareness that it creates for our respective brands, that all again funnel, that kind of is that high tide that rises our collective ships. Not only do we get to benefit from the deal flow that it creates, but we also get to benefit from the idea sharing, which is what now everybody else gets to listen to. Because in the previous episode, you broke down your philosophy and your strategy for how you wanted to do the Business Wealth Without Risk book launch.
Yep.
And it's obviously worked, right? I mean, there's no doubt that worked. And we talked about in the previous episode, are there some things you wish you had done differently from a scheduling perspective? Sure. But the strategy worked.
Yeah. So let's talk about here why this book. What is the objective of the book? Because I think that's always the place to start. What did you want from doing it?
Yeah, so the objective to this book, for this book is, so if we're going to talk about from a pure business perspective, to generate leads for Scalable's flagship services, where at the Scalable company, we help entrepreneurs, small business owners, systemize, operationalize, install an operating system in their business so their business can scale without them. Now, why do we want to do that? Right? Why do we want to help businesses install operating systems so their business can scale without them? Because then their businesses are more sellable, and perhaps we can be a part of the scaling and the selling / exiting of that business. So everything that we do is in service of deal flow, is in service of the investing private equity side of the game. But this is first and foremost to generate those kinds of leads, which is a different reader than the folks that you were targeting with the book with Jay.
Yeah.
We're really targeting with this book people who are in that 2 to, let's say, 12 million is kind of the sweet spot revenue range. And maybe their profits are super constrained, maybe even non-existent at this point in time. And they're in that gross, messy middle, the swamp of scale. We wanted to target those folks so that we can help them scale in showing value, maybe get to work together when they're on this, hopefully on the other side or close to the other side of the swamp of scale.
I like it. So the end result is deal flow, but there's a few steps in between. I want to talk about something because there are other people that have a model of, well, if you're looking for deal flow, why don't you just give away all this stuff for free, and then let the deal flow come from it, and the deal flow you'll reach way more people that way, and therefore you'll have greater deal flow. And ultimately, if you're truly looking for deals, then that's the way to do it. Why do we choose not to do it that way?
Because the way that humans show commitment is in their calendars and in their wallets. And so the idea that somebody is going to be committed enough to want to bring you in as a business partner or as an investor, that's a big commit. I mean, that's as close in the business world as you can get to marriage.
Yeah.
And so to do that, there needs to be some micro commitments along the way. And if you give everything away for free, then you're going to get micro commitments from the people who do actually spend an enormous amount of time to consume that content. The challenge that we found is that a lot of times the people who are willing to spend a lot of time to consume the content are your DIY folks. Yeah. These are not the people who are necessarily going to want to bring you in. These are the people who are going to want to try to figure it out so they can do it themselves. And God love them. I fall in that camp a lot of times, not most of the time, but enough. I can appreciate it, but they're the ones that were less likely. The folks, though, the simplest way to get somebody to make a commitment is to get them to make a small investment. And we've seen this time and time and time again, and it doesn't have to be much. Somebody can invest just a few bucks. But the second somebody gets out their wallet, second somebody gets out their credit card, there is a fundamental relationship shift that has taken place. They're no longer just a fan. They're no longer just a consumer of content. They're now a customer. They're now a client. And that shift is really important. And that shift now begins a relationship where they can make ever increasing investments to where now, we have people that we've been working with who have been giving us through consulting, through masterminds, through the advisory services that we've offered them. They may have given us hundreds of thousands of dollars over a period of years and have been thrilled to do it. And so then one day to say, hey, what if we were just to be business partners? That's a tiny little leap. Then, I read your book, I watched your YouTube video, I've been following you on TikTok, by my company. I'm not saying that it can't work. We obviously have a good friend who that is his whole entire model. But if you're going to go that route, boy, you got to be doing massive scale. I mean, you have to be so wide, cast such a broad net for the law of large numbers to kind of work out for you.
Yeah.
That just becomes a business unto itself almost.